Hey everybody, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? I was gonna take my birthday off, but yesterday, because now it's my birthday. Yesterday was would have been my adoptive parents' 49th anniversary. And I sat pondering, thinking, and then tonight I went outside and took some photos of the moon, which are really cool. I have to upload them. And it's not we're gonna have a storm in New York tomorrow. It's gonna rain. I don't know if it'll clear up by tomorrow night that I'll be able to get the full moon shots. So I took them tonight. Yep. But I wanted to come on. Talk about my favorite topic. Why is this my favorite topic? They're here. Not them. Although I still think they still are here. Even though we get told that they've been cleaned out, I don't believe all of them have been cleaned out. The baddies, at least. The baddies. What are we gonna do? We have to come to terms. I have my second co-host, Ethan, all the way over here. He came to join me. It's Morgan's birthday too. I share a birthday with my kitty. She went off somewhere. It's interesting today. I watched, if you don't know, I obviously do oracle cards and I watch tarot card readers. I also watch Tarot by Janine. Now, a lot of people are like, that's the work of the devil. No, it's not. It's the intention you put into it. If you want to work for that side, you just put the intentions into it. A lot of people have asked me about, before I go into Tarot by Janine, why do I wear dark makeup? I am absolutely 100% gothic. Not gonna lie, that's just me. That's my makeup. Always been this way, and I'm not changing for shit or for nobody. I don't care. I'm 39 today. Don't fucking give a shit. I'm not married and bound to no one. I don't have children. I have 4 children. That's about it. No one rules me and no one conquers me. So fuck off. But also dark to light. Dark to light. Have a meeting. Oh, it does. Oh, it absolutely does. So I was watching Tarot by Janine, and she did a very interesting episode about really who created us. Now, tarot cards aren't going to outright tell you, but they give you hints. Each card has multiple meanings and different numbers have multiple meanings, and each, I have a few tarot decks. I actually read better off of my runic because it has the runes on there and I know about the runes really well. I'm still missing my book. I wrote about runes, and that's actually what I should be practicing more than anything else, because I'm connected to the Norse. But you know, each card has meaning. That's me, even though this is a Virgo card. I'm the Emperor. Aries are Emperor. I think also the Fool. Yeah, so I mean, they're each person who pulls tarot cards, you know, spirit comes through them differently. Like spirit comes through more through the oracle decks, because I'm asking for, you know, if you've ever watched one of my oracle readings, it's a general reading, but a lot of people find messages within what the major theme that spirit wants you to know. Like I'm asking for everybody, spirit, what do you want really these people to know? And it'll pick out cards that give messages that most people need to hear. And again, they don't resonate with everybody. So when Janine pulls her cards, it isn't going to necessarily resonate with everybody. And the first card I just pulled is, that is incoming. I even shuffle. Justice is incoming. So she pulled cards today. And while she was doing that, her interpretation, and Sage, I love her, Ashley, basically was saying that we were created by them. I go over it with the Enuma Elish and the Anunnaki series. This is my life right now. I'm in a big terror. That we were in fact seeded, and not just by them. Our DNA was modified with different races. And you know, I look at my eyes sometimes and I'm just like, I definitely have to be half reptilian somewhere. Just because of the coloration of my eyes. I have green eyes, but they look like dinosaur eyes. I've always said that I have dinosaur eyes. I don't have like bluish green eyes. I have more of like a hazel green eyes. Interestingly enough, because I'm just going through. This is what I'm hoping for, that today I transform myself into the Phoenix Rising, that I drop all my fucking ashes. Sorry for the curse words, but I can't help myself today. And I have a rebirth so that I can get here. That's why the sun is above here, and then you have the moon and the star. And that was my theme for my Sweet 16 way long ago. 1999. Yeah. Happened to be right out. And then I had the chariot literally right after that. So yeah, that's my life in a nutshell. I think it was very interesting to listen to her. You know, and most people that listen to her are like in the truther community, patriots, stuff like that. So a lot of people don't necessarily resonate with a lot of what she does, but when it came to that, I mean, I love her. I adore her. I look up to her. Very awesome. It's hitting a population of people who wouldn't be asking such questions to tarot cards. Who asks, where did we come from? You know, did we come from the apes? Did we come from evolution? I mean, in Dolores Cannon, we have, through the densities, we were the trees, the rocks, the air, the fire, we existed in that form, and then, you know, each density we move up, we become the animals, and then once we have third density, here we are. But I think a lot of us were more than that before our incarnation to third density as a human. So I think it's you know, if go check her out. It's definitely pretty awesome that this topic is now spreading, you know, even though it's not the gray agenda and it's not bringing, you know, off the forefront to the alien agenda, but she does talk about off-worlders a lot. She calls them off-world. And again, the flat earth, globe, toroidal, we all mean the same shit when it comes to the beings. They exist. There's no denying that. We come from them. And I think a lot of you who watch me, whether you believe in that or not, it's going to come out. It's going to come out. And again, this has been a topic since, I mean, in the forefront in the media since 1947. And I mean, in other countries, I can't imagine going to Germany and looking at their articles when Hitler was rising. Because I want to know what they knew about the reptilians before it was even published. To be a fly on the wall. And then the Nordics. It's very interesting. It's very, very interesting, by the way. Just to think, to be a fly on that wall, to know what occulty stuff was going on. But I'm going to go read the Yellow Book, I promise. I don't know if I haven't really found too many people who have done the Game of Thrones theory to this, like all of it. Because I'm very convinced they have to tell you the truth. And that show, and I watched everything because I love that show, except the last season, because I also have some of the books I didn't get through. I read through half of the first book, and I just don't like how it was chopped up. Because, I don't know, it wasn't really cohesive for me. The other stuff that's coming out right now, Looking Glass, the Stargates, the Arcs, all this stuff is similarly in the Game of Thrones. You have your dragons. You have everything beyond the ice wall, the wildlings. You have the dead rising. That look like Draco. I mean, and there's other, you know, things. I mean, they had that special, I forgot what it's called, but that special thing that the ice or that metal that killed the Night King kind of deal. Ice glass, firmament, the old gods, the new gods, the seven kingdoms, and everybody's ripping each other off and everybody's dirty dealing, and Everybody's hands is in somebody else's bad pockets. Are we not living through all of this right now? Daenerys Stormborn going and like freeing everybody, liberating the slaves. The Three-Eyed Raven, which Ingersoll Lockwood wrote some very interesting books about a number 45 son. Very interesting stuff. I want to see if anybody really did a deep dive on that. If not, I definitely am going to attempt to do one. That is going to take me some time, but I'm really hoping that I'm able to maintain the rest of this month. I was just able to pay my phone bill. I don't even care about my accounts. I don't look at them anymore because it makes me upset, and I'm not going to be upset on my birthday. So, and no one wrote me a comment if you want me to do a live. Come on, people. And that would be later, like way later tonight, like 12 hours from now. Almost 24. All right. So the yellow book. And I do plan on going more into this if we have some time. The J-Rod source for the yellow book. Dan Burish, I hope I'm saying that right, claims that J-Rod was the source of the yellow book, which puts things in a different perspective, as J-Rod would have been, at least according to Burish, a visitor from the future. The predictions that the yellow book contains, therefore, would have been collected in the future as things that had happened in their past. Many sources mention the presence of a being called J-Rod at Area 51. There are two main theories with regard to who J-Rod is. Most sources claim J-Rod is an extraterrestrial, a gray to be more precise, and most likely from Zeta Reticulum, though it isn't clear whether he'd be a tall or not gray. He would have been part of an exchange program, as a main task here would have been to provide our scientists with knowledge. And then there is the version of Dan Burish. Sorry guys, my allergies are killing me. He claims to have been one of the scientists that interacted with J-Rod, and that J-Rod is actually a visitor from the future. In this version, several gray species would be descendants from mankind, and they would now be visiting us from the future to correct some mistakes that ultimately will have a negative impact on the possibility of the future gray humans to survive. Those mistakes that they wanted to remedy would have led to a cataclysm in 2012, which was what they were trying to avoid. So I assume they accomplished their mission, or they were wrong on the date, as often happens with their predictions. I'm going to see if I can pull up that video. But something did happen in 2012. And it's not what most people think. Where did the Mandela effect come from? Mandela, bleh. Where did it come from? I have a picture of Shazam and the video in the box. Let me see if I can pull that up. Hang on. Okay, before I go back to reading, I'm going to share my screen for a minute. Shazam! The VHS tape, like from Blockbuster, even though I'm sure this isn't Blockbuster. Yeah. Yep. There. I mean, we have a situation. I mean, that was going to happen. We have that situation happening. Oh, don't be scared. Yep. And then I'm going to see if I can play a smidgen of this. I don't want to get a copyright strike. Spanish, by the way. So a lot of people think that's fake. I've seen many different versions of this, not cleaned up. I believe it's completely real. Damn, it's getting windy. Yeah. So that exists. That absolutely exists. So I believe that's the interview that they're referring to. Maybe, maybe not, but he was talking about in the interview about a nuclear event that was going to take place, and that he came back from the future. That he said from the future, and he came back to take out the person that was going to set that event off. Now, the problem with that looking glass technology is that it's only giving you a percentage of if that could go off. We're in a multiverse. So the inaction that you're doing is being carried out by another you in another multiple multiverse. So there's multiple things that could possibly happen. And if, it's like if you change time, if you go back to change the timeline, you're gonna, if you step on an ant, just making the whole course of events of things change. And you see it through a lot of movies that when people go back in time and they touch something or something catastrophic happens, and they kind of rewind back, where they shift something, like the whole paradigm swaps and a whole new future is created. Well, this is a similar notion where they had a high percentage that this thing was going to happen and that they came back to take it out. Again, nuclear weapons aren't really nuclear because it needs to be stable in order for it to work. And when you put it on moving objects, it's no longer stable. Atomic weapons is another story. Going back to the book. As a side note, in 1954, President Eisenhower met with the representatives of the P-52 Orions at Edwards Air Force Base for the purpose of signing a treaty, and was given something named the Orion Cube, aka the Yellow Book. In exchange, the Orion Cube was an 8 by 8 inch square cube that was a quantum viewing device that, when activated, allows access to holographically recorded history and future probabilities. What I was just talking about. Though it's not working class. That's an actual AI. This is like Star Wars tech. Something called a primary looking glass device is housed in S4 level 2. On either side of this device are two Einstein-Rosen bridges, wormholes, and a series of galactic positioning codes that function as a compass. Also on level 2 are two Stargate jump pads, the Project Sidekick storage facility and weapons research and development, made up by 6 electromagnetic fields. And it's so coming out in the public. More of this information is now hitting main people, like people that are non-believers, people that never looked up into these projects before, people who never heard of this, this stuff before, like, oh, that's nonsense. What are you talking about? Yeah, this technology has been around a very long time. And each side has one of these devices. And then you need the parts to some of these devices, and those parts are rare. So it's like Guardians of the Galaxy stealing batteries and fighting out different factions, and yep. They have to tell you the truth. They just don't tell you in I mean, the X-Files was absolute disclosure. But in movies, they don't, it's fiction. Most of the movies that they tell you, and it's fiction. And through characters. The secondary function of this device was positioned at a 45-degree angle and turned to a slightly different frequency. It can function as an Einstein-Rosen bridge. While the primary device sounds like something that could also function as a time travel machine. And I would assume that this alien technology, I wonder if there are any relation to the Yellow Book, if maybe it is an extension of the Yellow Book and is based on its technology. The clean sphere measures 52 feet across and is domed by a 2-inch thick plexiglass clear bubble, which forms a containment area where the extraterrestrial biological entity, or EBE, known as J-Rod, would be tested. The dome would be hydraulically raised from the level below, which made up the EBE's quarters. All interaction was conducted this way to prevent cross-contamination. The clean sphere was filled with regular amounts of oxygen and nitrogen, which is 5% more hydrogen due to the J-Rod's lungs capacity. The military referred to J-Rod as an ambassador. The entity, however, considered himself a captive and was poorly treated through his 50-year tenure. This area was a quasi-embassy representing the Zeta Reticuli system. Dan Burrish would take tissue samples from the entity, who replayed to him telepathically that he was a human from the future who was sent to Earth from a planet near Zeta Reticuli to find a cure to a genetic neuropathy defect. During these interactions, Burrish would be required to wear a positive pressure suit to keep out biocontaminants, not unlike what the astronauts wore on the Apollo mission. The entity known as J-Rod was 3.5 feet tall, large, dark, wrapped around eyes, 4-digit hands and feet, and elongated arms. The name J-Rod was derived when linguistics asked the entity what his name was. He pointed to the letter J on a keyboard, which is the 10th letter in the alphabet, and the key, which is when investigated was in number 5 in Egypt, Mayan hieroglyphics. Scientists took this to represent that he had come from a star system 15 light years from Earth. A rather convoluted conclusion. The EVE's real name is Chi-Il-A. Information on the Yellow Book from Bob Lazar. Go look him up. According to Bob, I hate to repeat this stuff. I say this every time I mention it because I have no other proof it's true other than the fact that I read it. And I always follow that up by saying, yes, everything I read about the propulsion system turned out to be a fact. But it's really far-fetched, and even though I did work with alien technology and flying saucers, I still find it difficult to come to grips with the physical alien thing in itself. But as far as where it came from, yes, there was a book that was almost like a history of the development of the human race. It was written from a different point of view. I don't think that particular thing had a title to it, but we were referred to as containers. Anytime the word human came up, it was always replaced with the word containers. Earth was referred to as Sol 3 instead of Earth. It was a strangely written report. The word containers referred to people. Now, containers of what? I don't know. You could speculate on that until you turn blue. They call our, in essence, in my, like how I view this, right? I always say this is our meat suit, our avatar. It is also a container. It's containing our soul, our energy, our being, our essence, right? We don't die. Our physical body dies, but our soul doesn't die. We go upstairs, right? The Dracos can take out your soul and put it in a literal container and contain it. And then they have an entity come and walk into your body where you're not there anymore, your soul. So these things are there. Container, avatar, meat suit, whatever you want to call it. That's just my take on that. I'll tell you exactly how it looked. It was certainly odd in that it was written from another point of view. Oh, did I read? No. It was like a history book of us, like someone had been looking at the earth and written a brief history of what had happened and how everything living here looked, so on and so forth. If you remember the old Collier's encyclopedias, in the section on anatomy that had the clear pages that you could turn, and there was a circulatory system, the organs and so forth. Okay, this is one of the most fascinating things in the briefings, other than the information itself. As you turn the page, it would be a clear picture, for instance, an old adobe house. And as you move the page up, you see through the different levels of the house, almost like those little 3D things you bend and see different views. But it was very smooth and clear, very high resolution. I just never seen anything like that. I don't know if it actually exists anywhere or if we're talking about something of alien origin, but as you turn the page, you can see the superstructure, and then down to the wood itself, then the foundation. Then again, there were no references to people. Everything was containers. What they were talking about was desirability of containers and that the containers were not damaged. Now people speculate on containers. Are they talking about containers of souls? Something bizarre like that, or is it the opposite? Is the container the soul and it contains the body? That's too far out really for me to grasp. But they were talking about the preservation of the containers and how unique they are. Extremely, extremely unique. That life like ours was very difficult to find. By the way, the yellow book, if flipped over, is two books put together. One's upside down. This way, it's kind of the basic history of Earth. You flip it over and read it the other way, and it has to do with the Reticulum 4, as they called it, which dealt with the alien civilization. In effect, it was a history of the Earth from an alien perspective. And then on the other hand, an alleged history and perspective of the Reticulum 4, which presumably is the planet that they came from. But of course, I can't attest to the validity of the information in there. Unfortunately, when I first opened the book, the way it was sitting and the way I was playing with the pages and the drawings in there, it was some time before I realized it had to do with a lot of the alien civilization. I wish I could have learned a lot more. Still, on top of all of that, even the photographs of autopsies of aliens, that was certainly not what I was interested in. Yes, it's fascinating and awe-inspiring, but I really wanted hardware. Could this have been disinformation? The information is so extensive that it just seems inconceivable that someone could have made this up. The photographs seem rather difficult to reproduce, except by some odd technology having a photo lab. That's what intrigued me and why I played with it for so long. Nothing like I have ever seen before. It was like a Mylar-based page, and it was almost a clear section where the picture was. It changed, but it didn't change in steps like most diffraction grading 3D looking pictures do. It is difficult for me to come to terms with the fairly certain knowledge that extraterrestrials beings are out there and they visited the Earth and they're probably still coming around and so on. No, it's the only thing that makes sense. It takes a lot of the confusion out of things, a lot more knits together, and now things begin to make complete sense. Yes, I have come to realize that the Yellow Book is real. Maybe not exactly as we've been led to believe. Maybe the government has been spreading a little disinformation around about it just to keep us away from the real truth, which most likely is far more fantastic and amazing than we have ever realized. If the real story was revealed, we would not be able to handle it and our head might explode. I mean, the 17th letter of the alphabet says some things will put 99% of the people in the hospital once they find out. I don't think that has to do so much with aliens as it does to the truth of our origins and our beginnings and what we are. It all ties together too. All of it. Religion, aliens, our soul cycle, the densities, metaphysics, math, it all connects. All of it. If we are presented with something that we can't explain and you aren't able to share it with the world because it's high top secret and you have to sign a piece of paper or else you get killed. I mean, this is how they hold a lot of this information up because people are afraid to talk. a lot of people are afraid to present what they have seen. And it's up to us to see if we can resonate with it, because we're not going to know until they uncloak themselves out of the sky and we physically, and I mean, I've seen them, so I know they're real. But for like most people who are skeptical, and it's fine to be, until they drop out of the sky and show themselves, a lot of people won't believe. But then again, they're afraid to do that because we shoot first and then ask questions later, which, like, first off, if there was already alien invasion, it already happened. They've been here for way longer than us humans been seated here. They all had a hand in creating us, even the Greys. The reptilians too. They all seeded us. Once the Anunnaki left, the blueprint to us was left, and they played along. And then the other races came in to make some changes to help. But we've been infiltrated. So it's a heavy topic. It's a heavy topic, but if you look into the spiritual, they're talking about the metaphysics and the ascension and the dimensions and the densities and the chakras. I mean, it all ties in, but you have to go look further, because like Tarot by Janine just told a lot of people today, it's not what you think. And more people are now coming to this information. Although a lot of you who watch me know about this information probably, there's a lot of people who just don't want to open up to these possibilities. But eventually it's going to be forced down their throats, and they're going to have to come to accept some of these things. And if not, they're just going to be sleepy forever, and they're not going to ascend. And that's consciously, not like we're going, I mean, I want to go home. I don't know how many times I have to tell my star family, I want to go home. There really isn't much here for me in this time. And yes, things can happen later on in my life. But for the first 39 years, nothing but trauma, nothing but loss, nothing but not amounting to what I always wanted myself to amount to. I have high expectations. And yes, I had to drop them. And yes, I had to put my pride down. I had a lot of lessons my soul needed to learn. And trust me, we all do, and we all go through different things because that's what our soul needs. I get it. But I've been living in this, no, not moving anywhere, mentally moving on up, but just staying in this like status. And it's like, okay, when is my mission going to start? And a lot of people are in that same position as me right now. We want to go home. I know Earth isn't my home. I'm just a visitor here. Just a visitor. And if I can help from an above place, I'll help. I'll help. All of us will. But I'm done. Done. and I'll live a normal life. I have friends, but they're at a distance. Everybody around me is married. Everybody around me has a fiance, have kids, and have a life. And I don't fit into those things. And the people that I thought I had in my life walked away because they were just mere lessons and they moved on. And I'm alone, which I'm fine with. I've been alone my whole life. Now, though, we're finding the tribe, our soul tribe. And I think right now that's another reason why I'm doing these videos and reading these things, because we're all trying to find like-minded people who think like them. Can't really come out to the public to say it because, you know, you can't look crazy. I don't give a fuck what I look like. You're gonna judge me for that because there's some people that like, oh, you're all rich, you're this, you're that. Well, how godlike are you if you're judging? Maybe I'm the challenge for other people. I put this out there. It is somebody made a comment. What if I'm everything that you think I am not, because I'm the challenge that God put on this planet? What happens when you think somebody's something and you make an assumption? Oh, and then you have to retract it back, because when you actually get to know somebody and talk and converse with them in person and feel the energy and see what their heart's all about, you have to retract that thought, that negative Nancy thought, because you knew better, right? Stop making assumptions, people, about others. Accept people for who they are. It's important. Again, we are on a stage in an experiment where the aliens are looking down like this is a glass globe that they're shaking up right now, watching us all go crazy. We're a movie to these people upstairs. We could be sitting in some alien's bedroom on a shelf for a science project. I like to think of that sometimes, how small we really are. All right, back to the book and less me ranting. So at times like this, when I get so serious about this stuff, I like to bring myself back down to earth by reading this comment about the alien landing and their yellow book, and that someone shared with me. It's interesting when we read these stories and assume that the alien beings are giving us a gift that will enlighten our species. We discuss the possibilities of advancing our technologies from these all-knowing visitors. Is every one of us humans all-knowing compared to lesser species? What if the guy who comes out of the spacecraft is an alien pothead who stole his dad's ride and drank a little too much Jack Daniels? That's funny. He then crash landed on our planet and messed it up a little and felt bad. So he gave us a comic book. Oh man, this is good. Which we now call the Yellow Book. Just an anonymous commentator. That's hilarious. I mean, but couldn't that be true? I mean, but this is how the Greys deceive people. This is how we've been deceived, because they come down, you know, they crash land, poor me, my race is dying out, we're future you, and blah, 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 blah. And then we have cattle and people mutilations. We got the Dracos coming in as the cover. This is like, here, you go tell them this story, and we're going to come over here and we're going to infiltrate. That's what happened. That's what happened. But they've always been here. They couldn't really, this is like where, going again off the book, but this is just random things coming to me. And I want your comments, so comment. So the Anunnaki came down, and then we had the social memory complex of Ra, which I think is different from the God Ra that everybody puts out there. So we have the law of one. They've been trying to teach the law of one, and finally got channeled in 1980. They seeded us. They formed us, Enuma Elish. And then you had the Nagas, and then you had the Greys, and you had some other species here. That's not the only two species. There were way more Terrans underground, Agartha, Hyperborea, whatever you want to call it. There were beings down there. Again, not all reptilians are bad, and not all Greys are bad. Okay, so at what point after the Ijiji, here we are, humans coming into the fold. The Anunnaki left, right? Okay. So then we got manipulated even more. We got to dumb them down even more. Okay. So did they really leave? I mean, after Atlantis fell and supposedly things got wiped out for a clean slate, and then we had the Noah event that supposedly wiped everything out with a clean slate. Did they leave and then come back? Did they leave and then watch us evolve? Like, that's where a lot of things, like, for me, get wishy-washy. It's like the Jesus, the missing, like, obviously they weren't really missing, but like the missing period of time. Where did it go? Where did they do? What? No one answers that. If the beginning, the seeders came down to Earth to seed us, and let's just say the Anunnaki, the Enuma Elish is correct. The tablets, the Enuma Elish tablets are correct, and the Emerald tablets are correct. Okay, awesome. We were seeded, though, by other races that came. Palladians, Andromedans, Syrians. Okay, cool. So everybody dipped their hands in the genetic basket. Okay, great. Here are us humans. We got genetically knocked down, and I don't know from whom. Was it the Greys? Was it the reptilians? Was it these other races that we're saying that they're benevolent and they're not? But what happened after Atlantis fell? Because humans weren't around when Atlantis was formed. We're aliens, Pleiadians and whatnot, and the mermaids and the dolphins and the whales and all those, the Minnetonkins. Still alien, Terra, extra Terrans here, right? Atlantis fell. Then all of a sudden, Man started picking back up again? Or was it a second seeding with the dumber down version of us? Not to say that we're dumb, but we're missing our full genetic makeup. We've been shut down. Someone left me a comment on one of my wasp, when I was talking about wasp in the books and everything, and how kids can repeat the verses and stuff. And like, but we were never meant to speak. Telepathy. That's where we're going back to eventually. We don't need our mouths. Like, they don't really, I mean, some of them, and depending on the density that they're at, they eat, but it's like fruitarian kind of stuff. And then otherwise they get absorbed energy. There are monks in our third dimension that don't eat. They meditate and they take in life force, mana. But where did they go? Did they go underground? And then all of a sudden, the 1940s, they just started popping back up again? Were they always in the background? And then they like gravitate towards up here? And then the Granada Treaty happens, and then Project Circo happens, and then they see how established we humans were. They left us alone to see where we were going, and now we can actually take over, take them over, because they are now intellectually up to the capacity to understand and create, and we need to take advantage of their creative power, and steal their life force, and let's go scare them and do wicked things to them. What happened to that missing time? Where did they go? Did they just jump portal out and then decide to come back in the 1940s? There's like a missing period of time from when the ancients built the pyramids and put all this stuff up, and we were slaves. And then the deluge happens, supposedly. Maybe it didn't really happen. I mean, there are parts of the world that do flood out really bad, that do wipe out a lot of people, but did it happen everywhere? There's a lot of unanswered questions, but that's one that's been stuck on my mind for a very long time. If they're going to tell us about our history and about the truth, then what are the 22 races that seeded all of us? And again, we all take on and adapt our DNA differently. Like, I look more like my father, but my sister looks more like her mother. Like, our genetics, every time we are reborn and rebirth, we take on other mixes of things. So this life I'm more Palladian, more reptilian, but maybe in the last life I was more Andromedan and more Syrian, or whatever. It's a good question. A lot of questions need to be answered. And that's why I felt like reading this book brings a lot of these questions to the forefront. Like, okay, so they made us, but then they disappeared, then they came back, but why? Or were they always here and they had to wait until something happened, and then here they come, we're going to take you over again, or give you the illusion that you already been infiltrated, now we're just making our like presence known to you. Tell me what you think about that. I've read a lot of UFO books and research throughout my life, and that's still one of those questions that not one person can answer. They could tell you about the beginning. I hear a lot of channeling about Enki and Enlil and Marduk and the Luciferian agenda and the polarity of service to self. But then they disappear. Where did they go? Obviously, we know the Anunnaki left. But where did the Nagas go? Where did the Greys go? What happened to the beings in inner Earth? They were always been there. And then now all of a sudden they pop back out again. Oh, look at us, we have craft now. Oh, well, they always had craft. What happened? That's what I would like to know. How is this yellow book constructed? As you've probably realized by now, this yellow book provided by the E-bands isn't really a book. It has been described as a crystal rectangular block. This block of alien material, approximately 2.5 inches thick and transparent in nature and appearance. It appears to be constructed of a clear, heavy fiberglass type material. The border of the book is a bright yellow, which is why it is referred to as a yellow book. Is this starting to ring a bell in your head? Of course, we weren't that tech savvy when the yellow book came onto the scene, and our scientists were probably bewildered by it. But this yellow book seems to resemble something like an iPad. Did Apple receive alien technology? Although the yellow book was more like a nuclear-powered iPad, there are many similarities. How the yellow book works. One way of stating it is that the yellow book, yellow cube, or yellow disk technology does not utilize portals or wormholes, but rather it accesses the field of consciousness in order to show probable outcomes via a hologram. The yellow book, when used, would react with the people present viewing the possible future. It was noted that human interaction and human emotions would bring instability to the province of the information that was seen. Where is the yellow book now? As noted earlier by Bob Lazar, it is at Area 51, which makes sense. There have been rumors that there are more than one. Where would they be? Wright Patterson, Los Alamos? Does it work? The reader simply looks at the transparent surface and suddenly words and pictures appear. When you place the book close to your eyes, you'll begin seeing the words and images flashing before you. Actually, that probably isn't that amazing. When I sit down at my desk, my brother printer detects my presence and awakens from its sleep, and it comes to life and screen lights up and it's ready to go. Depending on the particular language you are thinking, that language will appear. So far, the US government has identified 80 different languages now that is rather amazing. The screen appears an endless series of historical stories and photographs. The Yellow Book tells the story of the E-band's lives, their exploration of the universe, their planet, their societal life, and other aspects, including the E-band's long-time relationship with Earth. It tells of their first visit to Earth. It displays Earth as it was in those days. The Yellow Book goes on and on and on. I don't think anyone knows how long it goes on or that there is any way to find the end of the book. They claim that it would take a lifetime to read it and another lifetime to understand it. I believe that. It is claimed that a record of 22 straight hours was set by President's scientific advisor. Also, there is no known way to stop reading in one particular place. Put down the yellow book and then resume at the same place. Once you put it down, the yellow book, and pick it up again later, the book starts from the beginning. In other words, the problem with reading the yellow book is that one must start all over from the very beginning once you put it down. If it took you 12 hours to read to reach event 564, and then you put it down, you would have to start all over again at the first words and images displayed during the first read. And only once you pass the 12-hour mark would new information you had not seen in the previous sitting would now appear. I can't believe there isn't a way to enter a date or a subject, have it start there. Maybe they will find the secret way to make this happen. As an example of what's in the yellow book, the E-bands claim our universe expands for about 25 billion years. It then contracts back to its beginning shape. Once the universe contracts, it expands again, repeating the entire process. This is considered and referred to as the lifespan of the universe by the E-bands, and we would refer to this in the inflation theory. The Urantia book talks about that. Sorry, I had to pause. I had to type a message to my favorite Jason, asking him such query, because there's a lot of documents, and I wanted his take, if he'll ever get back to me. He usually does within a few days. Like the epiphanies that I have just talking. Yeah, I'm so curious. There's missing time. And yes, time is a 3D construct, and I get that. But like there's periods in our evolution that are literally missing, unless what Tara by Janine was saying, that we were literally placed here. And then before a cataclysm happened, and then she didn't say this, but like this is my theory, we were taken off planet or brought over to the other, over the ice wall, whatever you want to claim. We went somewhere where a cataclysm happened, and then all of a sudden humans, did we start from zero? Or yeah, the Noah story, there was people and then they multiplied. I don't know how much I buy that. Because again, if we were seeded by these beings, Atlantis happened, and a lot of us are here in envoy starseed form and had to come back and do the 3D human life because we're caught up with that karma. And then we had to come and make things right. I get that. But after Atlantis, and there were 5 cycles supposedly of Atlantis, right? And there were humans around that time as well. And then the Noah flood happens. There's missing periods of time. Because things after a cataclysm just don't spark up new civilizations, and recovery time lasts hundreds of years. So our whole time, our calendars, the periods of years are off. I don't think any calendar, no matter what you believe in religious wise, I think Jewish calendar is like 57, 58, or 59. I think it's even older than that. But there's missing time. in our evolution, in our being, our seeding, our knowing, our getting dumbed down and taking our DNA, knocked down to 2 strands instead of 24, or whatever it's supposed to be. There's missing time. It just, some stuff doesn't add up. And if they were, even if they were underground or on Phobos and Deimos and the Mars and the moon, right? They still had control over us since Enki and Enlil and Marduk. And Atlantis happened after that. Because the survivors of Atlantis supposedly was Ra, who went over, and Thoth went over to Egypt. So was Atlantis really a cataclysm? Did it really just destroy itself? And even if it didn't, and there were survivors of that, how much landmass was taken out? How many people did perish? And then all that time period, there's many thousands and thousands of years, and then started to spark the Romans and the Phoenicians and the Etruscans and all those people. There's something funky with the time, and I don't know if anybody else has picked this up. Like I studied art history, so we go back, but I think there's a lapse somewhere. There's time lapse somewhere. These things are not adding up in my eyes. Like the prehistoric era and the, you know, those people, and then none of it adds up. Sorry, had to think out loud, because someone's going to pick up on this and you might have the answer, or you might be inquisitive and thinking very similar things to me. So comment. I'm going to leave you on this, because it is Passover and Easter, and hell, why not? Why not? Was Jesus really an alien? That's a question, and this is from the book. I think it's very interesting to see what this has to say. Again, I'm not here to disrupt the Eternal Son, the Jesus, Yeshua. Not here to disrespect Yeshua. The law of one. Gives you a hint of what Jesus really is. The subject may be offensive to many people, but just remember, I'm only reporting what the yellow book says, so don't kill the messenger from the book, okay? The yellow book also shows an Eban who took the appearance of an earth human, Jesus Christ. According to the yellow book, this earth human established religion on earth and posted the first alien ambassador on earth. As in the yellow book, Jesus Christ was a creation of one particular alien group, the Ebans. Jesus was a genetically engineered human-alien hybrid sent to Earth to teach the humans a lesson of love and tolerance, but I guess we didn't learn this lesson. Okay, so just going way back to where I was just ranting, the law of one states that Yeshua is a fourth density being who came into a human avatar to teach the law of one. and are new, and through all the readings of all the books that I do on my page, okay? The Gospel of the 17th letter of the alphabet, of Waspe, the Urantia book, the Keys of Enoch, the Book of Enoch, Key to the Universe, Melchizedek. I mean, I read so much. Pistis Sophia. Obviously, Yeshua was a being from above who has a higher density of understanding and knowing from the people that were incarnated continuously in the junk DNA cycle, right? The DNA not activated, not the junk DNA, because there is no such thing as junk DNA, because why would Creator put junk in us? Okay, even if it's the alien seeding us and make it, why would Creator allow them to put our essence into a junky body? I mean, we all have junky bodies because we've been poisoned. But the point, you have to think, how did Yeshua, I don't call him Jesus Christ, Yeshua, how did he know all this enlightening spiritual knowings if he wasn't something not of earth? And how did his prophets see things and they come to pass? They were channeling higher entities that had the answers. I mean, that's the only sense I can make out of that. Okay. There are people who are born specifically for, such as Yeshua, Buddha being a big example. And there's many others who came down with higher ended knowledge, and their mission was to teach us the law of one. And certain groups were seeded with certain information based upon geographical locations. And you see that in Owaspe. And I also feel like those different alien groups visited different portions of the world. Like, I highly believe that the Nordic people of like Norway and everybody up there, the Scandinavian countries, were seeded by the Nordics, the Palladians, the Lyrans. Whereas India, people were seeded by maybe Syrians, the Blue Avians, and other races. Egypt, Ra, Venusians. Some of the Orion group. There are so many damn races out there that all helped seed us. And I believe it has to be geographical. So whoever the EBEs truly are, it is plausible to think that this could be something to consider. Could Yeshua come in as just a higher density soul in a human body without having to be an alien? But we're all aliens. But a specific race? I don't know. As writer author C. Clarke said, quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, end quote. It is any wonder that the ancient people were impressed by the miracles of Jesus? This, of course, wasn't the first time extraterrestrials tried to influence human affairs. Previously, they successfully appeared to Moses as a burning bush, alien craft, or radiation, and presented the Ten Commandments to mankind. The aliens thought the Christ project would be no different, but needless to say, their experiment went horribly awry. Although many believe and teach that sacrificing his life was the main object of his sojourn on Earth, supposedly the E-bands were angry when they came back to check on Jesus's progress, only to find out the humans had killed him. And worse yet, their primitive Earthlings started worshiping him after that. 2,000 years and millions of atrocities later, Jesus, the space alien, is still being worshipped as a god. Man is truly a pathetic creature, desperately yearning for an almighty being to control and regulate their lives, fanatically looking for God in tortillas, oil stains, and tree trunks. Well, like it or not, hidden somewhere in some ultra top secret government facility, and even more likely to be in the Vatican archives, is probably the clear evidence that most of the gods of Earth's ancient religions were aliens. How many Earth's religions are based on extraterrestrials interacting with humans, displaying technology and being mistaken as gods by primitive humans? Kind of like the cargo cults in the Pacific during World War II, whose worshipped the technology advanced Americans who flew to their islands and gave them food and displayed miraculous items like radios and guns. Unfortunately, the powers that be are more than happy to have the human sheeple believe in false religions, which keep them pacified, compliant, and restrained. So it is unlikely the general public will ever actually see the definitive evidence for themselves. But as logical, intelligent beings, we humans have the capability to recognize the truth about religion for ourselves. Again, it's in the hieroglyphics. It is in the cave paintings and pictographs. It's there. Well, my tummy did not like me. Were aliens present at the crucifixion of Jesus? I ask this because painted on the walls, oh boy, of the Svet Shevali Cathedral, northwest of the Georgian capital, Tbilisi, sorry guys, I'm butchering that, is an image of Christ that has sent conspiracy theorists into a frenzy. The fresco painting shows Yeshua being crucified with a large crowd gathering around him, but in the top left right corners are what appear to be flying crafts. I've seen that painting, not in person, but in my books. And some form of advanced technology, which humans, of course, clearly would not have had 2,000 years ago. The ships are dome-like with three trails coming out of each, which look like a propellant of some kind, possibly light shining down. Art historians who have studied the 11th century painting claim that the strange crafts actually represent guardian angels. But during the Byzantine period, which was present in Southeast Europe and Southwest Asia up until the 1450s, angels were depicted as human-like wings, with wings. That's true. All the art, I studied Italian mannerism. Angels were depicted as human with wings. I mean, look at all the Lucifer depictions. And again, Lucifer was before Yeshua because he fell. The unknown artist seems to be telling us that these flying saucers were present during the death of Jesus. The faces likely mean these crafts were piloted by people or beings that seem to play a central role in the event. They must have been part of the crucifixion story, at least as it was taught by the Georgian Orthodox Church. Were early artists and Orthodox Church aware of the certain facts about ancient aliens that have been veiled from us today? This may come as a surprise to you, but throughout history, Jesus Christ and Christianity have been linked to alien activity. Two separate texts from Egypt now being held in the Morgan Library and Museum in New York City, and the other in the Museum of the University of Pennsylvania, which have been deciphered in the past few years. They actually suggest that Jesus was an alien-shaped shifter. Now that is really getting bizarre. Side note. There is a interesting story put out by Creepypasta. He does all these like fictitious but maybe possibly real stories, and there was one story that he told about someone who found a scroll of a Roman soldier who was there during that time period and saw Yeshua in his real form. Ain't pretty. Whether the scroll exists or not, I don't know. But it begs to differ that question. If that scroll does exist, and that soldier saw the real true form, I'm not going to tell you what it depicted as. Not fun, but it brings up a lot. The text describes Judas' betrayal of Christ. Quote, then the Jews said to Judas, how shall we arrest him, Jesus? For he does not have a single shape, but his appearance changes. Sometimes he is ruddy, sometimes he is white, sometimes he is red, sometimes he is wheat-colored, sometimes he is pallid like ascetics, sometimes he is a youth, sometimes he's an old man. I've never read that. I should look at that Judas gospel again. Another reading written in the Coptic language, a form of Egyptian, describes how Pontius Pilate had dinner with Jesus the night before his crucifixion. This Roman, who is considered a saint in Coptic churches, which would explain the favorable view of him, then tells Jesus, quote, well then, behold, the night has come, rise and withdraw. And when the morning comes and they accuse me because of you, I shall give them the only son I have so that they can kill him in your place. To which Jesus responds, quote, O Pilate, you have been deemed worthy of a great grace because you have shown a good disposition to me, end quote. Jesus then supposedly showed Pilate that he can escape if he chose to by shape-shifting, The text reads, Pilate, then looking at Jesus, and behold, he became incorporeal. He did not see him for a long time. The annotation with Saint Emilius is an altarpiece painted by Italian artist Carlo Carvelli in 1486. It was crafted to commemorate Angel Gabriel's announcement to the Virgin Mary that she would give birth to Jesus. Oh, I know that painting. Conspiracy theorists suggests that the ring depicted in the top left shining light onto Mary is an alien craft, but art experts say that it is simply shows a small collection of angels gathered around a circle of clouds. The ring and light represents the Holy Spirit and the descending towards Virgin Mary. I'm going to share this so you can see it. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this right there. See if I can. Hang on. No! Sorry, guys. Oh, while we're at it here. Looks like a jellyfish. With the trail right there, right? They look like jellyfish, but I mean, this is what the artist did. It's not like the advanced, it's not like the advanced artists in the Italian era. Let me get back to that and see if I can zoom in properly without losing the page. Sorry, guys. So here, they're talking about here, and I can understand like where art critics would say, well, no, like the clouds, they look, but like this, where the beam is coming down, that's a craft. Look at the windows. It's spherical. There's no like halo, you know, around it proclaiming angel. There's no wings. That looks like a winged creature right up here. The shape looks like a bird. Oh, I did it again. I did it again. Sorry, guys. Did it again, but I want to continue to go over this. This is where my expertise shines. Okay, so that beam that was right here, shooting all the way down, which I have some commentary with these artists. Okay, these people were commissioned, but there is no way buildings like this existed. And if they did, oh, what lies? Look how elegant the archways. Who built that? Remember, they had just camels and they walked on their feet. And everything was supposed to be out of mud and bricks and mortar, not what looks like elaborate artwork. If you're going to depict historical events, there's a gate on the window. Why? There is a gate. You know how like there's like window guards? I don't know if you live in the inner city, you should know what that is. There is gate on that window. So really, like when this was painted, does that make sense? It looks like rebar. This like like there's so many things to question. Like, yes, it is beautifully done. I'm not taken away from that. But like this was done, and I mean, Crivelli is really talented. I've seen a lot of his work in 1486. Okay. Still, back then, how were all these things like made? Alien tech. Yes. There were people that worked with marble and back then, yes. But there's like a lot of things that just don't add up. Like if you're doing a historical, like I never understood the Italian, especially Italian artists, that they would depict Mary and Jesus and the disciples and bring it into their time. Like, no, but that's not the time that they lived in, and that's not what they had. They had a shack made of straw and mud. Like, let's go. Oh, it's gonna rain. The Baptism of Christ, 1710. Art experts suggest that this painting is a reference to a religious passage. The heavens opened up. Sorry, the heavens opened. I wanted to say up, I don't know why. And the spirits descended like a dove, putting lightning upon him. It was painted by Dutch artist Art de Glender in the 18th century. I might have seen this one. UFO hunters suggest that the disc-like object shown shining light onto the John the Baptist and Jesus could be a UFO. The scene has been illustrated by many artists, says Internet UFO theorist website The Ancient Aliens. However, the scene is particularly interesting because of the flying saucer hovering over the scene with the beams of light shining down and illuminating the event. Considering de Glender's reputation as one of the elite artists of his time, it is likely this work was intended to be taken seriously and meant to communicate that Jesus had ties with aliens or perhaps was an alien in origin. Let me see if I can blow this up before I mess up and skip 1,000 pages. Okay. So where my cursor is, you see the spherical shape. And then you see this, like, it because of the age of the painting, it could be a paint mark or a discoloration. But you see the rays. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, like the jellyfish in the other, right? There's the jelly, it looks like a jellyfish coming down onto the scene. Right? And now you tell me if they've made marble archways and stuff, because Yeah, so you see, I mean, tickles my artistic fancy. All right. I'm going to leave that book there. I was going and might still do it. I was thinking about looking through all my art history textbooks and looking at this period and like Jesus depictions. There's not a lot of it. And they're not going to like specifically plug things in because, you know, old textbooks for the most part has been narrative driven to make sure you don't think. I mean, obviously art is to make you critically think. I think that's why I went into the field, to look at people's artwork and to unfold the story. And you can interpret painting and like, especially like my work, my psychedelic work, you can interpret it however you would like. I don't put a narrative or a story to any of my paintings because I want you to think for yourself, and whatever you take away from it, you take away from it. Unless there is like a person there doing something, obviously, but I don't do figurative drawing. I do realistic drawing. For example, it's kind of hard to see. That's Ethan Cat, and that's Morgan Cat. And that's installation foam. And that's trees, and then there's vibrational waves. It's trippy because I put silver in the background so it moves. Yeah. I was gonna do an art history on alien depictions, but those are really good examples. And again, I'm not here to upset anybody or to, we will know the truth when we know the truth, when it's disclosed to us, when we start questioning things a little deeper. And people have already been doing this. It's just when the sum of all knowledge is unleashed onto us. I hope that's coming and starts to come on the 24th. That's a speculative date that, you know, we're supposed to have the soul of flesh, which I don't think it's the soul of flesh. I just think it's time now for the Great Awakening to begin. It's why I made the Wanderer's Handbook I did the other night. Go check that one out. I do a lot of ranting again, but my mission is to help everybody see things objectively with not a bias. And even though I insert my own opinions and thoughts there, it's really just to open up your minds, just to make you think differently, because we've been trained to only go by what a book says and not think outside of the box. I know one of like the one and only Paul, I love him to death. He has like a lifetime membership to my page, by the way. But he wrote a comment about something I was saying out of context to the book, of the Urantia book. And he's like, well, the book doesn't propose, this is not what the book says. And, you know, like, and I'm like, well, no, that's not what the book says. And I'm telling you, this is what outside perspective, if you're reading this book, the Urantia book, and this section that I read, I made a correlation to Dolores Cannon and the Earth School and to stuff like that. And you can't, and you can, not saying you can't, but if you're making a correlation to something that like you have an epiphany and the light bulb goes off, right? Like I did earlier with missing time and knowing that something doesn't add up with our evolution and our DNA and the aliens seeding us and There's like some period of time that I feel is missing. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm making a correlation to something that is a possibility, that can be a possibility, but we need to look into it further. And the same thing with the books. People are always like, well, that's what the book said. That's what the book is telling us. Well, no, because maybe that book isn't no. You can't follow to the T anything. You have to go within and follow your heart. So I will, when I read books and I stop and I take a pause, or I do an offshoot rant, or I come up with ideas, that's just me thinking, making like a correlation to something, like I'm noticing this in this book. This is what I'm seeing in another book, and maybe there's a possibility this correlates. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's thinking outside of the box. It's like making connections to other things, because it's all one and the same at the end of the day. It's all one and the same. At the end of the day, it's all about love and light. It's all about coming into yourself. It's all about acknowledging the creator that you are, because we create it all the time. It's coming to acceptance that we have fragmentization of God in us. We are a part of it all. We are all a part of each other. So don't take anything that I say as disrespectful. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. It's just opening up a conversation. It might not be, sadly, we have to get used to being uncomfortable, because we've all been lied to. All of us have been lied to. The books that we read, we can never take as the end and the executioner's block and say this is it. We don't know if that's it. We only know what's left to us from history, and most of it's been infiltrated. Some stuff isn't, some stuff is. And again, there's a lot that we need to start looking into. A lot. But I do believe that we've been seeded by a lot of different races, that they do ship-shape. Like, there are people that can do that are of malevolent, good intentions. There are them that are bad. There's a lot of things that we have yet to all fully experience, but it does happen naturally in nature. People do see things, and people shapeshift. I mean, Carlos Castaneda, the book that I read about the Dark Night of the Soul, there's a lot in that book, so go listen to that series. Very interesting takes on things. We have to stop limiting our thinking capacity and really start opening up our paradigm. Even if it's wrong, it's thinking differently that matters. It's coming and being aware that there are different things and different perceptions and perspectives that we can take into account. And if it doesn't add up and there's no facts there, it's okay. Thinking differently doesn't harm anybody. It opens up the conversation. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to try to get a little sleep. I am watching my neighbor's dog tomorrow. Well, today. No, people don't care. It's like, oh, I'm going away, but you're not doing anything, right? It's your birthday. It doesn't matter. You're not doing anything. I don't mind. She's a really nice person. So yeah, gonna try to get some sleep. Try to meditate. Neptune is conjunct to Jupiter. So Phoenix rising, visualize good stuff. I got candles going. I had sage in the window before. Happy full moon to those who follow the moon. I'm going to try to keep my spirits up today. It's a rough day for me. Being adopted and knowing how I was born. Not fun. So I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to put this as episode 8B, the continuation of the Yellow Book. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave comments. Please tell me what you think, especially about missing time. And if that is something maybe, you know, I need to look into further, but a lot doesn't add up there and I want your take. So please leave everything. I might do a live later. I'll see how I'm up, like when I'm in what mental state I'm in. And I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Love and light to each and every one of you guys. Thank you for spending your time with me tonight on my birthday.